What's going on, guys? I know this video is way overdue. I apologize. Last week got kind of crazy and I had some pretty bad internet experiences over the last weekend, but nonetheless, I got my notes, I got everything. Before the chapter comes out tonight, let's go ahead and do a quick, not so quick review of episode 251 of UnOrdinary. So right off the bat, we had the intro part with Remy and Arlo and Ison. They learned about the news of the Rowden Royals getting out of hand and starting a fight with some other kids. Now, really interesting thing about this intro that I honestly didn't really like all that much was Remy's reaction to everything. Now, Arlo's reaction made sense, and I think that Arlo should have been the one to question the employee, but essentially the employee told Remy, Arlo, and Ison, hey, the Rowden Royals, they've gotten out of hand, we need to get out of here. And Remy was just like, hey, but they're royals, shouldn't they be shouldn't they be responsible? And the guy's like, ma'am, they're teenagers, they don't give a shit. And then Arlo brought up, hey, well, why not get the authorities involved? And the guy was like, well, you know what, we've tried, but they have connections, so everything they do kind of gets swept under a rug. Now, Arlo gets visibly upset at this development, and that makes sense for Arlo, because Arlo still kind of has, I assume, he still kind of has this faith and belief in the authorities, despite everything he's seen and heard. Because, let's be real, Arlo himself hasn't really experienced anything that should make him lose faith in the authorities. He hasn't had that yet. He's clearly become skeptical with all these recent developments he's come underway and everything, but at the same time, he has a big influence from the authorities themselves, and it's his Aunt Valerie. And, I'm sure that Arlo loves his aunt, so I'm sure, he is still kind of no, my aunt is still good. The authorities, they still know what they're doing. Something has to be going on. There's got to be something going on. The authorities are still on our side. I'm sure that that's still in Arlo. But Remy's reaction actually does bother me a lot, because Remy shouldn't have faith in the authorities. Remy has seen higher ranking people abuse their power and not give a shit. Now, granted, Remy, I don't think, has really seen people, she's never really seen other royals aside from John not care about their power, but at the same time, she's seen higher ranked people not care. Again, but really, John should be a big factor, especially because they've all had the talk about, especially since they've all had the talk of, actually, John is, an example of what is wrong with the system. John is a big example of why the system is bad. And also, like I said, Remy doesn't have faith in the authorities at this time. She hasn't for a long time. She's about taking matters into her own hands. So the fact that she's so just because, just because this, that's how it is, there's nothing to do about it. Remy, you should already know, why are you even asking? I feel it would have made much more sense to have Arlo say that and ask that. That's just me, though. That's just me. So, yeah. So next up, we get back to the fight with Blake realizing that Blake gets back up. He's realizing that John is healing him. Now, I want to touch on this later, because Blake actually does quite a few things where he notices stuff about John in this chapter, which I really like. Now, John, it's not even a fight. It's John obliterating the Rowden Royals, and it's absolutely glorious and amazing. So John just clearly showing yet again, his mastery over his own aura, and also his mastery and understanding of abilities in general, because throughout this chapter, multiple times, John is just out showing everyone at their own game. Skylar, the queen of Rowden, the demon blade. Is that her ability? Demon blades? Demon blades, yeah. His demon blades just freaking massive, and hers are just like, compared to his, and it's like, bro, hell yeah. And yeah, it's amazing. It's it's John like just showing like how much farther he can take a person's ability. And it's really cool because even Kree, the king of Rowden, he's just like, he's using our abilities. Like, what the hell's going on? And it's like I said. It's like I've said to the Jokers before. I think I've said it to you guys too. Like UnOrdinary, I guess you could say UnOrdinary has been missing in action lately. But honestly, I'm okay with that because when Uru wants to give us a fight, when Uru wants to show like, yo, you want some motherfucking action? Let me show you some motherfucking action. Uru goes hard. Uru goes ham with the action, and it's glorious and it's epic, and I love it. I love it so much. Like, honestly, like her choreography of the fights and everything is superb. It's awesome. Like seeing John like even just reading, like it's not animated anyway, but even just reading, seeing the action unfold on the panels is just awesome because it does give a picture of like what John is capable of, like how much farther ahead he is of everyone, how much more experience he has from everyone. It's amazing. Now, something really interesting that happened in this chapter was Dylan, again, the kid who John saved from the past. Dylan telling Ezra, that's the Jack of the Rowden Royals, the guy with the purple hair. He alerts Ezra that Blyke and John are the kings of Wellston. The kings. Now, that's really interesting. That was really interesting because Ezra then brings up how he's heard about Wellston's mismanagement over these last few years. And it's really interesting to see because it's been brought up a few times about people at Wellston, specifically Headmaster Vaughn, not wanting information about Wellston to get out and spread to the public. And that's really interesting because it shows that like, hey, word is spreading fast. Like word like is getting out about like the state that Wellston's in. Gossip does spread across the area, across the region, most likely. Like this is Rowden we're talking about. Freaking Agwin probably has even more information, but I actually thought about something too, because he pointed out something about this as well. He pointed out getting information about Wellston since before he was assumedly in school. He could be a fourth year like Arlo, but I'm inclined to believe that he may be a third year, kind of like Blyke and John, or lower. Point is, Ezra brings up, again, the Jack of Rowden High, the Jack of Rowden High. He brings up that stuff. He brings up knowing about Ray's time as king. Now again, this could be because he could be a fourth year like Arlo is. So he could have been there for Ray's he could have gotten information about Ray's last year in his first year of high school. Now, why do I say this is interesting? Because it gives me an idea. Now, it's interesting because he's known about the reputation since Cassandra left. He didn't mention Cassandra at all. We still don't know who Cassandra was as the queen of Wellston, the highest student at Wellston, because we don't know her ability. I still say she's Flameclaw, so maybe she was the Flame Queen. Who knows? That would be dope. But anyway, so he brought up knowing about Ray, the Lightning King. He brought up knowing about Arlo, the Defense King, and he brought up knowing about John, the Shadow King, and he used that name specifically, the Shadow King. So, he doesn't know about Blyke yet. Assumedly, Blyke has only been king, I think, for most a month, but also, Blyke's not really the head honcho of Wellston, let's be honest. We like Blyke Blyke is clearly the strongest male, but Blyke isn't really the head honcho of the Royals in terms of rank, because I am sure it is based off of rank in general. Remy is the head honcho of Wellston. She's the Lightning Queen. So maybe they'll hear about her soon. I don't know. But and also Remy is definitely the one who's like more in charge of Wellston itself. Remy's the one making the big efforts. Blyke is following along. Blyke is making his own decisions, and he is agreeing with Remy. They are definitely talking to each other about everything. But at the end of the day, Remy is kind of the one in charge of Wellston, practically. Anyway, now, something I want to point out. Now, I think it definitely could just be like, high school students talk, you hear things out. I definitely heard about things from other schools growing up. But what I think is actually the case, because Uru dropped this shell early at the very beginning of the chapter, that the Rowden Royals have a connection at the authorities. So I think it's actually possible that the reason that the Rowden Royals know about the shambles that Wellston is in currently is because they have those connections to the authorities. And Vaughn is an issue with the authorities. We know that Valerie, Vulcan most likely, put Cassandra to investigate at Wellston. And Cassandra herself said, hey, I know that things have gotten out of hand since the new headmaster took over. So I am thinking that Vaughn, clearly the authorities, Vaughn is definitely a block in their road. Keon has mentioned that in the past. So I definitely do think it's possible that Vaughn is just that big an issue for the authorities, that it's common knowledge among them. Kids hear their parents talk, and so they're getting their updates from their parents, like from their connections to the authorities. And it's just like, this is what Wellston is like. You need to be better than them, sort of thing. So it's interesting. I do think that's also a big possibility. I think that's more likely actually than just, hearing word of mouth stuff. The Rowden Royals are informed about the issues with Wellston because they have that connection to the authorities, and the authorities are actively trying to interfere with Wellston. So, going off the next part, hearing Ezra talk crap sets John off. And this was honestly something I was really afraid of. So Ezra goes off saying that none of the kings knew how to handle anything and that Wellston is in shambles because the last king he heard of, the worst of all, John, the Shadow King. Now, I'm not sure that Ezra realized he was dealing with John, because I feel like he would have made it a point to refer to John by that. But instead he just said oh, I heard about this guy, the Shadow King. He's a real ass. So I don't know. Maybe he, well, now that I think about it, he didn't mention any other kings by name, more by their ability title: Lightning King, Defense King, and the Shadow King. So maybe he didn't realize. Anyway. So John gets pissed, and we hear John's inner monologue, and he's starting to lose it because he brings up that these guys, they attacked innocent bystanders. They attacked Blake when they took a cheap shot at Blake after they lost, and he was distracted, and they're losing this bad, and they still think that they can talk crap. He's like, I'm done. And they're just cowardly assholes, essentially. And this part is really interesting. And I want to touch on this a little bit later. There is a quote that John does say during this. So after Ezra sets off John just finishes off Ezra, the Jack of Rowden, and he also finishes off Miles, the healer of Rowden. Finishes off the Jack of Rowden and Miles, the healer of Rowden. And he does begin to go a little bit overboard. I talked about this last time, where I was worried that John would get out of hand and start to go overboard, which is to be expected. This is kind of the first time he's used his ability since. So he starts to go off, and basically Kree tells him to knock it off and to stop. Blake realizes that John is starting to snap and is going a little too far. So Blake tries to think of a way how to stop him, and we see him about to use, I believe, a pulse ability, the pulse. But before he does, Arlo shows up and activates the barrier. John stops immediately. John doesn't even hit the barrier. He just realizes that the barrier has been activated on him, and he sees Arlo, Remy, and everyone ahead of him. And he immediately stops, and he stops himself, and he deactivates his aura. Now, this is the really interesting part about this part, actually, because I noticed this around the third reading, actually. When John stops himself and he starts reflecting on himself, he says, "They're all judging me, looking at me as if I'm some kind of monster." But the only people he actually looked at when he said that was Remy and Blake and Ison and Dylan. He didn't look at Arlo. He didn't acknowledge Arlo in that situation. He clearly saw that Arlo stopped him, and John's probably grateful for that, let's be honest, because John does want to be better, and John was able to stop himself when he realized that Arlo was there. But I don't think that John thought Arlo was looking down on him or thinking about him, because John and Arlo have had this conversation already these last few times. Like, Arlo is pretty aware that John is actually trying to be better, and he clearly knows that John is going to fuck up sometimes. Like, it's John we're talking about. Arlo has admitted John is a bit of a wild card, but he's the best card we have right now. So I just think it's really interesting, because it seems like their bond is starting to grow a little bit. It may still be hostile, of course, but it genuinely seems like John knows that Arlo isn't looking down on him, that Arlo isn't judging him, that Arlo understands John's not perfect, John's trying. And to that as well, I don't think that Remy, Blake, Ison, well, no. I think that Ison definitely was judging John right now, possibly. But I honestly don't think that Remy, Blake, and even Dylan were judging him. I think their honest thought of what was happening was definitely like, okay, we got that, like, we got him to calm down. Like, it's fine. Like, I honestly do think that, and especially since Remy has noticed in these last few chapters, John is trying to put in an effort. John's trying to make an effort to connect with the students more. Granted, he only joined the safe house so he can get on the trip to help with Sarah, but John has actually been making an effort to try and help around the school. Very little at a time, but he is still trying, and Remy has taken note of that. Remy even said that, like, hey, I know you were trying. I appreciate that. I'm sorry it didn't go the way you wanted, but I have noticed that, like, the improvements you've made, John. So again, I really don't think that Remy was judging John in that moment, and I definitely don't think Blake was. And then John said something really, really nice. And he asked himself, why is it so hard to be better? And I really like that. I like that Uru is definitely making it a point that John is trying. It's not easy. It's not overnight. Well, in terms of UnOrdinary, like, well, no, we do like a few month skips and everything. But like, in terms of UnOrdinary, in terms of how the story progresses, it might be faster than like it would like in real life, but at the same time, for us the readers, like, this is a process that has been ongoing for all of UnOrdinary. So I like that Uru is making it a point like, hey, John's not perfect, he's trying, but like, he's still gonna mess up, and he realizes that he's messing up. So I appreciate that Uru did that with John. So this is what I want to talk about. So after John deactivates his ability and Arlo takes down the barrier, like, John begins heading back to them. When he does, he walks past Kree and Skylar being the queen of Rowden, and Kree goes to attack John, like, saying, don't look down on us, after he asked John to stop, to knock it off. Now, this is something that honestly does bother me. And this isn't a criticism of Uru. This isn't a criticism of Uru. It's not meant to be. This is a criticism of the people both in universe and in fandom who look at John and think that he goes too far. I definitely do agree. John does go too far sometimes. He does. John definitely has, he's over-attacked a lot in the past. He has. That's been acknowledged. It has, over and over again. But what I don't like is people go to attack after they have lost. Because then that just makes me think, like, why was it bad when John did it then? Why was it? Because here's the unfortunate truth that we've seen time and time again in UnOrdinary. People don't stop. They don't. And that's been brought up as a critique in the society by characters like Remy and Blake. But people don't stop. They don't. So John doesn't react at all. Arlo does summon the barrier. He blocks Kree's attack, and, Kree just fucks up his arm because he's an idiot. But it just makes me think, how far is actually too far in UnOrdinary? Because had John not been there and had John stopped on his own, these guys would have stopped. These guys would have still attacked him, just like they did to Blake. After Blake beat Kree the first time, Skylar stepped in and attacked Blake and took a cheap shot. after they tried to ambush John and Blyke stepped in and got rid of all of them, and Blyke was talking to John, they attacked him cheaply too. So it just makes me wonder, like, I feel like there is a big hypocrisy in both the series and the community itself, just as to how far is too far actually. Because in this world, people don't quit. They honestly don't. It's when John does it that people are like, no, that's wrong. You need to stop. And honestly, I do get it. It's not good on either front, but I feel like people look more at when John does it as opposed to when it happens with everyone else. I used this example before. When John fought Remy, if John let Blyke go, if John didn't take out Blyke still would have interfered with the match, and that would have just been annoying. Like the people in UnOrdinary, they don't stop. When they ask for someone to stop, they don't. They actually don't. They try and figure out, like, haha, I tricked you. Boom. And it's like, why is it different? Like, why is this? Like, why is this clear double standard here? I just don't like that. I don't like that. Like, it is sad. Like, it would be more sad to see John. It's going to be more sad seeing John go farther and farther back down, because he has made it a point to himself, to Serafina, to his dad, to everyone, that he wants to be better. So seeing him go back down, it definitely would be more sad. But before, when it was like him, like, you know, just like, fuck all of you, like, wasn't fine, but it made sense. I was okay with it. I was okay with John going overboard before. But now, like, seeing it happen, I am kind of like, bro, no, that's not good. But it's just, I'm totally rambling. I'm sorry. But it just irritates me a little bit when, like, people are saying John is going too far. And it's just like, I'm sorry. If he didn't, this would have happened. That's just my thoughts. Anyway. So, after that, the park security show. The park security or the cops, I'm not really too sure which. I am more inclined to say that it was the park security. But at the same time, they kind of look like actual cops. Like your standard blue uniform cops, essentially. So they come and get Kree in the cuffs that Blyke and Remy were wearing. I'm sure that, like, they could... Actually, I think Blyke said that those cuffs were for elite tiers. Or no, for, like, higher to lower mid tiers. And, like, that elite tiers could do anything to get out of them. So, I don't know why I brought that up. Anyway, they come and they get Kree and Skylar. You know, they take them off. Meanwhile, some healer is taking care of Ezra and Miles because they are unconscious. John hit Ezra with the 10 beam. Did he hit him with the 10? No, he hit him with the 5 beam. He only used one hand, but he fucked him up with it. It was glorious. Anyway, so another point with Remy that I didn't like with this chapter was, as, like, all of that was happening and, like, everything was kind of getting cleaned up, she looks at Arlo and she, like, is clearly agitated, and she's like, you said they wouldn't start anything. And Arlo's like, I meant with each other. And I feel like that's obvious. I feel like that was Remy's biggest concern, that they were going to start a fight against each other. But I also don't like the wording she used when she said, you said they wouldn't start anything. And it's like, they didn't start anything. They ended it. Like these guys, like, the security officer told you the Rowden Royals started a fight with, what did the officer say actually? Or what did the employee say actually? And let me double check that. What did he say? I really wish there was an easier way to, like, go to the top in the mobile app other than just scrolling all the way back up. Yeah, he says it's the Rowden Royals. they started a fight with some other kids over there. So like again, Remy, like, why aren't you giving people more credit? Like why are you like, like, you have been told the Rowden Royals started this. John and Blake ended it. They stopped the confrontation. Like, I honestly don't. Remy did bother me this chapter. That's just what it comes down to. I didn't like that, Remy. I'm sorry. Now, this is really interesting. The last stretch of this chapter was really good, and I really liked it a lot. So after all that is going off, right as the chapter is about to end, Blake and Ison are kind of in the back as like John is like sitting on a bench by himself. And Ison asks Blake what he's doing. And they're like a good bit away from John, I want to say. Like, they're like a couple feet away. Like, clearly Ison is whispering, but like Blake is like looking at John. And John is trying, and as Ison asks Blake that, he looks at John and he sees that John is kind of like freaking out still. John is like holding his hands to his head and he's like breathing really heavily. And Blake's taking note of that, just like he did before the fight, or during the fight, when he noticed that John was shaking, and when he noticed like how like kind of like nervous John was about everything. And what's really interesting is in the next shot, one of the security women, I believe it's the healer woman who was healing Miles and Ezra, she walks up to them. But when she goes up to them, a panel shows Blake and John right next to each other. So I'm pretty certain that was Blake walking up to John to check on him in some way or something, like ask him something. So it is kind of difficult to tell just because of the shot with Blake and Ison. It is hard to tell how far away he is from John actually, but I'm pretty sure he wasn't as close to John as he was as the security woman walked up to him. So I don't know. That was really cool to see, and that was really nice to notice. So, Uru, thank you for that. So, now, real quick, we had some bonuses this chapter. Now, this is the best thing in this chapter. This is the best thing Uru has given us since John's ability. Guys, it's happened. It's real. Elaine is not the strongest healer in the series anymore. She has been out-leveled by Miles. Healer with the healing link from the Rowden Royals. A 3.8 ability. Get the fuck out of here, Elaine. You're trash. You're trash, girl. Praise Uru. Thank you for... And also we were able to get John a level 10 recovery. Like... That's glorious. And when I say the best healer, I don't mean like can heal herself like Seraphina can. Seraphina isn't a designated healer. John isn't a designated healer. Elaine was a designated healer, and she's been outclassed by that in someone else who is a designated healer. So that was glorious, Uru. Thank you so much for that. Now, Ezra, Shadow Flame, the Jack of the Rowden Royals. A Shadow Flame ability with his level being... Let me pull him back up. Scroll. Okay, so the Jack of the Rowden Royals. Ezra with an ability of Shadow Flame. He's also a 3.8, so also an elite tier. So that was really cool to see. Now, unfortunately, we didn't really see much of his ability. It's kind of like a mix of... Oh, actually, now that I think about it, I'm pretty sure he's the same level as Melee and Ventus. That's cool. Anyway, we didn't really see too much of his ability. It seems like it's kind of a mix of like Blake's energy beam and like explosion, but we really didn't see too much of that, and I don't think John actually used it in this chapter. I don't think John used it, or there wasn't any noticeable use of it. He kind of just used it as a projectile, as a means of attack. Not really, we really didn't see it too much of it, and I wish we did. Anyway, Skylar, the queen of Rowden. Demon Blade, a 4.2. Interestingly enough, she's stronger than Demon Claw. Now, I like that a lot. Now, I think this speaks volumes as to what Demon Claw could be capable of. John was already an example of that. I'm going to go back and read that fucking fight. I fucking love that fight. Anyway, John is definitely an example of like what Demon Claw could be capable of, but seeing Demon Blade like a stronger variant of Demon Claw, I want to say, super cool. I loved that so much. It was so cool. And then Kree with his armor suit. Unfortunately, it wasn't Man of Steel, wasn't Iron Man, wasn't Steel Man. It was just, you know, it was just there. It was cool. It was cool to see kind of like a defensive ability with nice rounded out stats, like John said, like John told Blake. Anyway, Blake's ability did show up. Now, Blake's ability showed up, his graph showed up, but Uru noted there are no improvements. This is just for reference. And I really like that, actually. I really like that Uru included that. I wish she would do it more often. Like, anytime we see a main cast ability, you don't have to do it all the time, because I do feel like after a point we definitely do get a hang of like what the main cast's abilities look like. I do wish, like, maybe like around important fights kind of like this, we could see it as a comparison instead of just having to go to the wiki or having to look it up online, having to check a different chapter where we know the ability is. I think that would be nice. Like, from here on out, like if there's a main fight that like we need to know about, or like where it would be good to compare the stats, other than like for example, this is definitely an example of when she should include abilities we've seen before, just because it'd be nice to see how I compare, because Blake was up against 4 elite tiers in this match. We don't need to see, the stats for like if Blake fought against Evie or Roland, because they're low tiers. Like, we don't really need to see Blake compared to them, but it would be really interesting to see how they stack up to people who they come up against. Heck, like we've seen Layla once show us her ability compared to John's ability. Like, let's see how those match up if they ever fought. That'd be really cool. Anyway, it's just nice for comparison, I would say. And then of course we had John's ability. We had him with at least 4 abilities if he did have Shadow Flame. He probably didn't, let's be real. I think Uru definitely would have made it a point to show that he did have it. But maxed out power, maxed out tricks, maxed out recovery, which was nice to see, and almost maxed out defense. Now this is interesting because this is 1 high tier ability, 3 elite tier abilities. And Uru definitely has this figured out. She's made it a point to show that she has figured out the abilities and the charts and everything in UnOrdinary. But to me, this graph seems like it's actually stronger than John versus Sarah's graph, because this is a John that when John fought Sarah, he had maxed out defense, maxed out power, and maxed out trick, and he had decent recovery and decent speed. Now, looking at this graph, it does seem like John's stats are higher. Speed is definitely lower, but it does seem like the other stats are higher, and defense is almost there. So I don't know. It just that's how it is to me. Like I said, I know that John who fought Sarah was a lot stronger than this John right here. That was 3 high tier abilities and 1 elite tier ability. That was Cecile, Remy, and Arlo, and Zeke's abilities. So clearly that John was stronger. But that's just me. Anyway. So, real quick, some further thoughts on this chapter. Like I said, going back to the confrontation with Blake, with Ezra bringing up Welston status as kings, I do wonder what Blake's king title is going to be. Is he the Red King? Is he the Energy King? Is he the Pulse King? The Pulse King. That's pretty cool. Beam King, just because it sounds so stupid. I don't know. That's awesome. But like I said, uh, Blake Blake shouldn't be the talk of the town. Blake shouldn't be the talk of the town when it comes to Wellston. I think this definitely is an instance of, like, Blake being there to handle the situation. So clearly they know that he's the king of Wellston. But I definitely do think when it comes to, like, talking about the Wellston Royals, Remy should be the talk of the town, because Remy is the fourth strongest student at Wellston, because none of the actual strongest students want the title. But I definitely do think that Remy should be, like, the main. And like I said, Remy's the one calling the shots right now. Remy is the one in charge of Wellston. She definitely is talking to Blake and Ison, like, getting their input on everything. But at the end of the day, she's the one taking charge. She is the one who came up with Safe House. She's the one who tried, like, said, like, I don't care if I know how much stronger John is than me. I'm gonna try and beat him still. So I think Remy definitely, like, I think when it comes to, like, the rulers of Wellston, it should be Cassandra, Flame Queen, Ray, the Lightning King, Arlo, the Defense King, John, the Shadow King, and Remy, the Lightning Queen. I that's how I think it should be. Like, Remy definitely deserves the recognition for the ruler of Wellston, because she is the strongest. Seraphina is the ace, after all. What does that put Arlo's position in? Because that's actually an interesting dynamic now that I think about it. Sarah is queen, John is king, Arlo is ace. That's an interesting dynamic. Anyway, and now that I think about it, that's probably just Seraphina's title is the ace, because I'm pretty sure Sarah is the only ace we've ever heard of in the story. John is the Joker because he is the wild card in more ways than one. But yeah, interesting. What was I talking about? Anyway, doesn't matter. Further thoughts. Oh, Dylan brought up that John and Blake were the two kings. Now, it's interesting. Now, that could have just been, an instance of him, like, that definitely could have just been an instance of him trying to, intimidate Ezra. Like, yeah, we got two kings. Like, these guys are better than you. But it does make me wonder, do some people still view John as the rightful king? Because up to this point, almost everyone in Wellston is kind of, like, terrified of John. But some people are saying he is making an effort, like Evie, like Dylan, like Remy. So I wonder, do people still think that John is the rightful king despite his attitude problems in the past? That's an interesting dynamic. It's also interesting that he brings that up, because it does lead me to believe, hey, maybe John and Blake are gonna, like, be the two kings. Like, maybe John is gonna be like, I don't want this, but you know what? Fine. I'm the king of Wellston. Because John also still has one more year. He could be the king next year if he wanted to, or him and Blake could share the title if they want to. And we don't know how much time is left. We don't know how much time is left in this year. I think they're probably, in the second half of their third year, but it's uncertain. We don't know when Arlo's graduating. He's right around the corner of graduating, like, Valerie said, but, like, we don't know when that's going to be still. But yeah, I do think it'd be cool. Like, I think it would be interesting for, like, just one day, like, like, one day we see John, like, walk up and, like, people are being asshats and everything, and they'll see John, like, who are you? He's like, I'm the king of Wellston. Back off. Leave him alone. That'd be cool. Anyway, chapter's coming out tonight in T-minus a few hours. I don't know when this is getting uploaded. I'm going to record it, edit a little bit. Anyway, so what I think is going to happen in this next chapter, I'm pretty sure Uru made it a point to show that Blake has been noticing, like, John's reactions to everything during this fight and after. So I do think it's possible that we will get a moment with John and Blake at the security office. Kind of like when Remy, Blake, and Ison were at Corovo Mall after the booth incident. They had a moment to like talk about everything going on, and they were just kind of like, you know, talking to each other. I think we are gonna see a moment where Blake and John do like kind of talk things out. Where Blake's like, "Hey, what happened? What happened? Like, why were you shaking beforehand? Or like why were you freaking out afterwards?" And John tells him like, "This is why I didn't want to fight, because I don't know how to like control myself." And I think it would be nice. I think it'd be nice because like John is trying. He's trying to be different. He is trying to apologize for the past. And like I've said in the past, it may be too late for Blake, but I think Uru is showing these last few chapters, it's actually not too late. And I really do hope that this chapter, Blake is like, you know what, like, you had my back today. You kind of went a little overboard, but thanks. Like, thanks for what you did. Like, thanks for your effort. Like, that'd be nice to see. And it's also just going to be the two of them. It would be the two of them alone. No outside interference. Remy's not around. No one's around to talk to them. It's just the two of them. Now, yeah, like, that's just me. Now, with the security woman, she may just ask Blake and John for their side of the story, and, you know, Blake may just be like, "Hey, like, yeah, like, we heard, like, they were free, that these guys were causing a panic. We went over, we saw that they attacked security guards, so we stopped them." And John may be like, "Yeah, I went a little too far, sorry about that." But I am kind of inclined to believe, because the Rowden Royals have a connection to the authorities. Blake and John don't. They don't. John's dad is a target of the authorities, or rather an annoyance to them at that. So I definitely do think, you know, it's possible, like, you know, like Remy may see Blake and John, like, you know, head into the office, and she's being like, "Oh, I'll go with them." Or like Arlo's like, "Hey, yeah, we'll go with them." And they're like, "Oh, no, not you two. Like, we don't want you two. Like, you're not a part of this situation." So they may try and like screw over Blake and John because like these guys have a connection to the authorities. Who knows? I think that's definitely possible. It's also possible that the guy from Spectre might get involved. If that guy in the black sweater with the blue hair is with Spectre, it's entirely possible that he's not with Spectre at all. You know, he could be like someone from the authorities, but like Uru's definitely been dropping hints that like he is with Spectre, so he might get involved. He might be like, "Yo, like, you two, like, come on, like, come with me for a second. Let's talk." Either way, this is definitely getting reported to Spectre, and like I said, they may be like, "You know what, John went too far," but you know what, he did hesitate for a moment. He hesitated, so I think that's definitely, he's improving. And they may also see like Blake, he's improving as well. Anyway, lots happening. A lot of crazy stuff is happening, and I'm looking forward to tonight's chapter to see how things go from here. See what's going to happen next. I really hope we get that one-on-one with Blake and John. So that's it for today, guys. I'm honestly going to give this chapter, is this a 10 out of 10 chapter? Is this a 10 out of 10 chapter? You know what? You guys probably think I'm being too generous. With these chapters later. I gotta say it. I do think this was a 10 out of 10 chapter. The action was good. Well, does Remy, I need to try and be fair. Does Remy drag this chapter down a little bit? No, she doesn't. Like I said, you guys might think I'm being too generous. I do think this was a 10 out of 10 chapter. The action was good. You know, seeing John fight is always good. You know that's going to be good. The story that was being told and the story beats that happened in this chapter were also good. Solid things happening. Like, it's all the little things adding up that make something so great. But yeah, 10 out of 10 chapter, out of the park, Uru. Way to go. So that's going to be it for today, guys. I hope you all had a great time with this video. Hope you guys watch it before tonight's chapter, but you know, I will see you guys later tonight in T-minus a few hours for episode 252. Until then, everybody, as always, See you, Space Cowboy.